thank you for bringing us here to the Young and Reckless headquarters. This is super sick, man. And like, you got the podcast blowing up right now, Short Story Long. You know, but honestly, like, this show is something that I take so much passion in, most importantly because I really enjoy sharing stories of young hustlers, people who've actually really, you know, became an entrepreneur and have done it, and they're like living the dream, doing what they love every single day. And it gives me the opportunity to also build relationships, you know, with people who I believe are really, truly the modern day leaders of this generation, that are inspiring and doing it for the right reasons, and doing it more for impact, and because it's something that they love more than the money, more than anything else. It's because like this is what they genuinely are driven and feels like their purpose. You know, and I've been following you for a minute now, probably like a lot of our audience, man, back in those Fantasy Factory days.
I feel like I've had like 5 different lives, you know? Like I had like this time frame of drama to this time frame. What I'm wondering is, at what point do I have to lose the name Drama and just be Chris? You know what I mean? Like at some point I'll grow out of it and I'll be like, oh, remember when you were Drama? I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like, man, like our whole life, man, it's just a bunch of these chapters. You know? But would you prefer Chris or would you prefer Drama?
Actually, you can go Drama.
All right, dope. All right.
Yeah, I'm at the point in my life where about 50% of the people still call me Drama, 50% call me Chris. And I like the name Drama. I just feel like, to a degree, like when you're trying to build businesses and be a little serious. I mean, I don't take myself very serious, but like when you say like, what's up, man, I'm Drama, and they're like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, you're really here to like pitch me an idea and you call yourself Drama, you know? I don't know. It's my own identity crisis.
Yeah, true. It's a brand, though. You know, it is a brand. But overall, your name is going to be your legacy, and you have a lot of time for that. We're both, you know, you're young as shit, and you're killing it. But for me, I did first come across you as Drama. Fantasy Factory. Rob was one of the guys that I always inspired me as one of the first like mentors that I saw doing it as an entrepreneur. And what was interesting for me, seeing you build your business during that time frame, and that you didn't, like a lot of people, get caught up into the fame aspect and trying to like be famous. It was more like, no, you're trying to be, you know, build a business, be an entrepreneur. Maybe part of the reason why so many people nowadays think it's the cool thing to actually become one, you know, because like you're one of the first people on television as like young millennial, and that was what you were doing. That was cool. But like, I want to know kind of before the show, like who were you growing up, and how did like skating inspire you, and did you think that you were going to be someone who would become this businessman that you are today?
So growing up, I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and my life was just dedicated to skateboarding. It's all I wanted to do. I didn't really have, I mean, the good and bad of that was it sort of kept me out of trouble. I had a passion, but I couldn't really think beyond skateboarding. So it's not like I grew up thinking of all these businesses I would start. And to be honest, part of the reason why I, you know, tell the stories I tell is because you're sort of, in these small towns, you're sort of told that you can't be that. Like, that's too big for you. Those people are superheroes and you're just not that, right? So I never really had expectations of being much of anything, you know? So grew up skateboarding. I was always very like crafty and like sort of a hustler, you know, selling bike parts. And, you know, part of the way that I moved, I always tell people this, there was 3 places where I got money to move to LA. One was from my graduation money. The other was from stealing iPods at Best Buy and selling them at school. I had this whole racket where I knew how to steal them and blah, 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 and I would sell them at school. And then the third was I went and filmed. I got really into filming and taking photos. And I filmed a video of all of my friends skating and made a skateboard video like of the Akron crew. And then I went around to all the skate shops in Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati and sold them the video to say, like, here's what the Akron crew's doing, right? So we had a big premiere and we did all this stuff, and that probably made me like a couple $1,000, you know? So that's how I moved here. So I was crafty, but I didn't have these like high expectations. You know, I really moved here with like the goal of getting a studio apartment and maybe working in the skateboard industry as a filmer and drinking a bunch of beer and not having any rules. Like that was like my dream, you know? So that's, that was sort of the quick version of what the Drama before he was Drama looked like, you know?
And then once you got to LA, like, was your passion geared towards more being a creative and like film and photography, or was it more, you were continuing to want to take, is that your like into the skateboarding industry as a way?
What I would say is like, this is one of my greatest gifts, and also sometimes I feel like a big flaw, is I didn't necessarily have this like very honed in, focused passion. It was sort of like I wanted to learn, I wanted to get in, and I just wanted to be in the action, and I wanted to be somebody and create things.
Yeah.
And even today, like I can't say like my diehard passion is creating clothing, or my diehard passion is waking up every day with something to do and doing it and going to bed at night feeling like I did the most I could do that day, right?
Yeah.
So I came, really my first goal, what I was going to do is I was going to get a job at a skate shop, just because I knew that was sort of step one. That's when I sort of started spending a lot of time with my cousin Rob, and because we didn't really know each other very well growing up. And so when I moved here, I was like, hey, can I stay with you for a month? Just give me a month to look for apartments and blah, blah, blah. He's like, sure, why not? So I started spending a lot of time with him. We ended up getting along really well. And it just so happened that his personal assistant quit like the day before I was supposed to go back to Ohio. And so he came out and he's like, hey, do you want to be my assistant? And I was literally 18 years old. I was like, I don't even, like this whole city just seemed like chaos to me, right? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I don't even know what an assistant does. I don't know what that means. And all of his friends were like, don't do it. It's going to ruin your relationship with him. Because when he works, he's very, he's just very, he knows what he wants, and he's very demanding, and he's very, you know what I mean? Like he can be really funny, but he can also be very on it, right? And so they're like, don't do it, it's going to ruin your relationship with him, and you know, whatever. But I decided, I mean, here's your options. You go work at a skate shop, you know where that's going to lead you.
Right.
Or at least be an assistant, mess it up for 6 months, be terrible at it, but the amount you're going to learn just from doing that is probably, you know, obviously way beyond working at a skate shop. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And that's where that journey sort of started, you know? So there was no real plan. It was just like, I want to get out there. I want to get out of Ohio. I want to do something.
Yeah.
And that's even what led me to work for him, as opposed to the skate thing. Was like, I don't know, this seems like there's more action here.
That's why I feel like just getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of this environment that you kind of grow up in. And like, I mean, so many people out there, I think, get caught up into, I used to call it the bubble, like where I grew up. Like I just felt like I was in a bubble. Like it was like the same shit every day, like same people, like people telling me that I can't, you know, I'm not gonna amount to much, I'm not gonna be anybody special, like, you know, and it just, but like similarly, I wasn't into skateboarding, I was into BMXing. And I was also into skating. Like rollerblade skating and stuff, and I loved being outdoors. I loved adventure. I loved taking risk. Like all these little things like that kind of make you like have the mindset of becoming entrepreneurial. And you know, I don't know, there's something about, I feel like, those kind of action extreme sports that really...
I learned a lot from skateboarding. I think that like the one thing that I will say that I didn't learn was sort of the... Is it good?
Yeah, okay.
The one thing that I would say I didn't learn is sort of the like team, you know, getting along with a team, and sort of any sort of authority I'm really bad at. And you know, I feel like even when I first started, when I was young and I first started having to lead a team of people, I was a little bad at it, right? Because I was always sort of this on my own skater sort of brain. But what it did teach me was like this, you know, you have to rely on yourself. All progress is going to come from yourself. It's your own management. There's no scheduled practice. It's whatever you want to do. And it's sort of that mentality of like, you'll go try a trick for an entire day and literally fall and eat shit and be bleeding. But when you land it, it's like this, like, it's all worth it. And sort of, I think that really instilled in me this like, you know, just try and fail and who cares, because you know that the moment you succeed, it's gonna all be worth it, you know? So I agree. I think that stuff like really affected sort of my brain.
That's sick, dude. I love that. And then, so talk to me about, talk to me a little about, have you had any like fucked up obstacles? Like those days where you were like, shit, man, like I don't know how I'm gonna make it out of here, or like, did you have any like dark moments early on in an early on part of your career where you weren't sure like who you were and how to find yourself and what you really were supposed to be doing, or anything that's...
I'll say like my, being 100% honest, my dark moments are a little different than most. I would say, you know, I did have the very early Ohio, and it wasn't that dark because my family's incredible, right? My mom and dad are so good that unfortunately they make you feel like no matter if you are a complete failure, it's fine because you can live in the basement forever and we'll be so happy, right? So it was sort of this like happy but confused, like, right? Like, what am I going to do? And I knew that I wanted more so badly. And I've always had this sort of like almost drive myself nuts type of ambition where it's like, it's not, I wouldn't call it insecure or what, but it's like, I feel like such a loser and so worthless if I'm not doing something or growing or adding value to the point where it drives me nuts. But so I think growing up in Ohio, that was huge, was trying to figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to amount to more. And like I said, I mean, my parents didn't have very much money growing up, but I didn't know that. They didn't let it be known, and I didn't know any other way of living, right? So it was just like, you know, whatever, but I knew that there was more out there. I knew I wanted more. Then when I moved here, I think, you know, I had a huge phase of not knowing anyone and being very sort of lonely in this city, because I didn't, like I said, Rob and I are cousins, but we didn't know each other very well. And, you know, when I moved out here, he was, I think, 32 and I was 18. And so I remember literally moving here and the first night, like almost in tears, calling my mom and being like, I can't do this. I have to move home. Like, this just isn't, it's too crazy. All of his friends were like 32, 34 years old. I didn't know my way around the city. I just felt like so out of my element. You know, I'm this 18-year-old kid and I have no peers, no friends, no nothing. Now, that ended up being a strength, I think, because I was forced to learn from these older guys and I was forced to get in. And now, you know, it sort of sped up the process a little bit. So anyway, then I also think, you know, being on TV, and TV really wasn't what I wanted to do. I just knew that it was sort of a gateway to bigger things. And so I had a lot of issues with like anxiety and stuff while we were filming, and a lot of stuff of just feeling like, man, this is all the wrong thing for me and I'm headed down the wrong path and this isn't, you know, this isn't my thing. And lastly, I would say this one I hate to even complain about because it's the big like boo-hoo Hollywood story, but it's like TV was great for me because it helped me launch my first brand and really helped a lot of people even know who the hell I was. But it gave me such a hill to climb in perception, and I was kind of looked at this certain way, and I was looked at as Rob's little cousin, and I was looked at as sort of this dumb, sort of shy, you know, and so it's like this great gift, but breaking out of that, and I think trying to make Young and Reckless be respected, and myself be respected on any level, and sort of making my own path just felt like, I don't know, in the beginning it felt like this great gift, and then it started to feel like, man, like now I have this struggle.
This perception that you had to kind of like
overcome. And I knew a bunch of people that were successful, but that were idiots, but they were perceived as these geniuses, right? And it's just like, man, that guy's an entrepreneur, that guy's a genius. I'm like, what, that guy's a moron, right? But I'm looked at as like this little goofball, you know? So it was like, that was like a big thing for me to try to get through or get over, you know? But that's it. I mean,
you're doing it. You know, one thing that I think I can relate to you. At the time, you were like, fuck, I don't know how I'm going to do this at 18. And I remember going through that same thing. My parents, though, were like pushing college on me, you know, and to make them proud, because I was getting into trouble and I was like fucking shit up and partying. And I was like, you know what? I almost got in big trouble. I was hustling. And I decided, okay, you know what? Like, I don't want to, like, become that failure. Like, I want to actually make my family proud, you know, and make something out of myself. So at that point I started channeling my ambition, but like over my first semester of college I realized that like college wasn't for me. Like I was just like, this felt like a big business. They're telling me what classes to take to earn credits to get to the classes I want to learn, to just learn business and you know, mounting debt. And I decided like I'm gonna drop out my first semester and it's like all on me. And then I had to like find some mentors to like help guide me. And I feel like you know, my education came from like mentors throughout my entire life. And it seems like you got your education similarly once that happened, where you got, you know, reconnected with your cousin, you started being surrounded by his boys and people, and they became mentors to you. But did you ever consider college before that, or like was it straight into that mentorship?
I considered college only in a very small part because it was what you're supposed to do. And that was it. Now, I got lucky because my parents are actually pretty like, they wanted us to, you know, obviously no drinking, no smoking, no cursing. You have to play one sport in high school. You have to do one extracurricular thing, and you have to go to college. The great thing was my brother was so good and well behaved and did everything so right that I was able to sort of rebel, and it wasn't as big of an issue.
Yeah.
Right. So I was able to go do my own thing, and it was like, well, at least one worked. Right. Like, at least we have one good son. Who cares if that one's an idiot? Right. Yeah. So I knew pretty early that absolutely there was no way I was going to go to college. I didn't even take my SATs or any of that stuff. I skipped the day because I just knew like no chance. Because I just knew I also didn't care. Like, I didn't have anything to lose. If I worked at a skate shop for the rest of my life, at that point I would have been happy. Yeah, just as long as I could live in LA and pay my rent, right? That was it.
Did you skate at that point in your life, like every day? Like that's what you did?
Every day, all day.
Did you like cut school, go skating, like all
absolutely. That shit? Every day for like 12 years. You know what I mean? Like I did just enough. I did okay in school, probably mostly like B's and C's. But I did just enough to sort of, like I said, like make the parents happy enough that the stupid kid was going to make it through life. Yeah. And then I would just be skating the whole rest of the time.
When did you start getting your tats?
When I moved here, because that was another big thing my parents hated, right? So I remember the day I moved here, I was like, fuck this, I'm on my own. And I drove to the Beverly Center to Claire's and got my ear pierced. And I was like, fuck this, man, I don't give a fuck. And then keep in mind that night I'm on the phone with my mom, like, I don't think I can do it, right? But, and then like 3 months later, I got a tattoo, which is a great work of art that says the word drama.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it was right then. And then soon after, I just started stacking them, you know. But yeah, man, I don't.
What do you feel about college though now? Like,
here's my honest opinion, and I hope this comes off right. I think unless you have a passion to go into a job where college is 100% necessary, like a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, I think it's absolutely pointless and stupid. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that sort of frustrates me, I guess, is, and not that, I don't like to complain too much about something that I'm not even attempting to fix. Maybe one day I'll be able to say I did something, but is just schooling in general and how people are educated in general in this country. Yeah. And how quickly things are changing for job opportunities and what type of jobs are even available and how kids are being taught in high school. And I just think it's so mind-blowing how it's built to put kids in debt. It's built to give kids no dreams. We don't try to harness what kids' dreams are or passions are. We just sort of say, no, go to algebra and shut up, Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things is that's why that frustration, as a side effect of that, not to get political, but is why our president, not my president, was able to run on, I'm going to bring factory jobs back and things like that these people have been educated for. And those jobs don't exist, right? People are coding, or people are working in tech, or people are whatever, doing all these different things, creating YouTube pages and creating content. And, I mean, there's kids making millions of dollars off of their Instagram pages. It's like, I just think that that's a huge flaw in our sort of system right now. That's a huge shame.
And it's interesting because once you started working again with like Rob and all this, like that became the schooling that really did help teach you the business.
Yeah, that was my college 1,000,000%. And I was so lucky because I not only saw Rob. Rob has a very specific way of going through life and creating businesses and doing what he does. And then I went when I found my business partners for Young and Reckless. They have a very different way of doing it. They're USC educated, very smart, had been in apparel for 10 years and very margin and numbers and operations driven, which is kind of the opposite of what Rob is. And then I met this guy who's in finance. And so it's like being able to soak all that up is like, there's no college that could have taught me that in any way.
Yeah,
and
priceless.
It's learning how to navigate. You learn the rules in college. You don't learn how to break the rules in college, right? And I think the people who sort of break them or manipulate them or whatever are the ones who really become successful.
Agreed. Yeah, I love it. I love the way you put that.
Thank you.
So then when did it click for you that you were like, I'm ready to start my own business? Like, when did that happen?
ASAP. It was kind of like the way, if this makes any sense, it was like, okay, I want to move to LA. All I want to do is live in an apartment, work at a skate shop. Then it went to like, okay, I guess I'm working for Rob now because I have this offer. Then that quickly turned into filming. It was probably 3 months later that they were filming the pilot for Rob and Big. Okay. And I remember being there, and that's why my character on that show was like, what the hell is going on? Because it was literally that. It was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm trying to go do this guy's laundry, and now there's MTV cameras. Like, what does this all mean? But what I knew is this. I knew like, okay, I knew I didn't want to be famous. I don't like a lot of attention. I don't like cameras, but I knew that was the gateway to something. Yeah. Like I knew like, well, the action's here. So if you guys want to just mess with me and make fun of me, I'll take it because there's something going on here, right? So then that turned into filming the show while working for Rob. It was right after Rob and Big ended that I was like, I don't want to work for Rob anymore. This is miserable. And I definitely don't want to be a reality TV star. But we had heard that MTV wanted what would end up becoming Fantasy Factory. So I knew this is my chance. Like, because now Big Black is in Texas with his family, and it's just me and Rob, and if I'm ever going to have a chance to start a business and market it, this is the chance. So I rushed into Young and Reckless, got all the trademarks, did everything as fast as I could.
How did the name, where did that name come from?
Man, you wanna know what I really think it was? Because it sort of just, I had a bunch of terrible names before.
Yeah.
The name that I almost landed on was called Vanity. Like being vain, which thank God that I didn't choose that one because I would be back in Ohio. But I think there was a Kanye West line that I always used to love where he said, you know what the Midwest is, young and restless.
Oh yeah.
And I was from the Midwest, so I was just like, Kanye. And I think that, I wanted to create a brand that meant something and that stood for something and that kids could kind of get behind and really feel a way when they put on a shirt. And so I just sort of flipped that a little bit to Young and Reckless. But yeah, I think that was about the extent of it. It was just sitting in my room for months and months and months because I knew the show, we were going to start filming the show.
Do you feel like it related to you too? Like being young and reckless growing up and just like breaking those rules?
And that's why, because I think like my biggest saving grace or the best thing that's ever happened to me was just learning that it's possible, right? And this sort of like doing what you want to do and going out there and experiencing shit and learning that there is a better life for you. So what I wanted to do was sort of put that into it. Like, how do I create a movement around this, right? How do I get everyone to be like, yeah, we're all young and reckless and we're all going to go, whatever it is. I don't care if your dream is to be a base jumper, right? Go do it. Start by jumping off your roof into your pool, whatever it is. Just go do something, And so yes, I just thought like, if I could create more of a movement or more of a mentality, that you have something bigger than, because for me, it's not like, I didn't grow up with a dream of selling t-shirts. You know what I mean? But the idea
the brand is, the meaning for it is more than even the clothes.
And I would love, like even with the podcast and all this stuff, like if one day I'm doing content and highlighting people around the world that are living the brand and doing charity work and doing all this different stuff that all ties into the same thing, and then the clothing is sort of the after effect of all of that, that would be a real dream come true for me, right? So yeah, I think that's what it was. In my young, like 21-year-old brain, I was trying to get that all across.
So talking about like the early on process, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there, like within their first year of like launching their business, trying to get that traction and momentum, what was it like for you? And at the same time, I'm sure, like I was watching it, like you were like literally live building this thing on television. It had to be like wild. And at the same time, Rob is this like, he's a maniac entrepreneur himself where he's just like great at freaking, launching, ideating and launching things. Like how much of an inspiration, or was he a mentor through that process for you?
Huge, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing he ever did for me, literally ever, was just showing me that you can do anything. Like I was thinking about it on the driving here this morning. Like this guy went and got like a Fantasy Factory, sort of sight unseen, without knowing if a show was going to be a hit, without whatever, and started ordering like foam pits and blobs and zip lines. I'm like, I just can't. I don't know that I'd be able to do that, right? Like I have to think 5 times before I put a neon sign here. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, whatever. But he taught me like just go for it. Anything is literally possible. So I would say. The way that went was, so I knew that we were going to start filming the new season. I knew I had to hurry because I didn't know whether it was going to be one season and done. I had no idea. I just knew I had a short window to get my idea on TV, and that was a huge advantage. So I rushed into it. Part of the story I always tell was that, of course, I went straight to Rob, and I'm like, hey, man, I want to do this brand. Let's do this brand. And he's like, nah, man, I'm too busy. I have too much stuff going on. And I was like, oh my God, like devastated, right? Like what? Like you're Willy Wonka. Like just give me a brand. You know? And so I ended up, that was my first sort of learning thing, which thank God I had to go through, where I had to go.
And you probably did that on purpose too, just because you knew like.
Yeah, you want to know what he's told me later in life? Like, no, to be honest, I just was a little busy and I thought the idea was whack. I just thought it was stupid. Really? And he's like, then once I saw kind of what it became, like, I regretted it, and like that's one of the biggest, like, sort of, I think for him it makes him so proud of, like, his little cousin moved here, he sort of said, no, I don't have time for that, and then I actually created something, and it's like, oh shit,
That's awesome.
So that is a huge moment for me. But so I ended up going and taking meetings. And what's funny is, going off on a little bit of a tangent, the guys who I ended up partnering with have a brand called Pfaff.
Oh, I didn't know that you're part of that brand.
Yes.
They just reached out to me.
Yes.
That's
Z's
dope.
here. I'll introduce him to you.
Okay, cool.
So I had went to them on like season 3 of Rob and Big, and I had said, hey, if you guys give me $500 a month, I'll wear Pfaff on TV. Yeah. And they were like, nah, we don't really do that. And I'm like, shit, $500? Like, come on, man. Like, I know I'm the third guy in line, but like, $500? Yeah. So what's funny is I always joke with him. I'm like, had you just given me $500 a month, I would have never started Young and Reckless. And like, you know what I mean? Like, you could have just, I could have spent this little.
These little moments of
and I was
saying no to you.
Yes.
Like, so many people get bummed that people like saying no and doubting you, but like it can just lead to so many other creative things.
I'm telling you, the only reason I started Young and Reckless was because I saw Rob was obviously making millions of dollars from DC and from sponsors, right? And then Big Black started a clothing line, and he made a couple $1 million off of that thing. So I saw this crazy potential. So I went out and started asking for money for sponsors. And I remember, like, I was getting like $200 from Echo or something a month, you know? And I was trying to collect, but I was just low enough on the totem pole that nobody would mess with me. And so that's what got me sort of frustrated. And I was like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it myself then, right? Like, I don't care if it's a online only, like whatever, I'm just gonna create something because I want somehow to fit this into this machine, right?
Yeah, create it.
So anyway, so that's what pushed me to really start it. Had somebody just said, shut up, here's $500 a month, I would have been thrilled at the time, but once again, I would have been back in Ohio now. So anyway, I'm off on a tangent and I kind of forget where I was going. Where was I going?
Yeah, so like, you know, everyone says kind of no to you, you kind of hardly have the sponsors that are saying no to you, so you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna create it on my own.
Oh yeah, the troubles and the, So I remember I was in the room and trying to come up with the name and blah, blah, blah. Took it to Rob. He didn't want anything to do with it. So I'm like, shit. So I ended up taking a couple meetings, and one of the meetings was back with these guys who wouldn't give me $500. And I was like, hey, man, I have this idea. You know, it's going to be huge. We're doing this whole new show. I'm the second guy now, right? It's just me and Rob. Let's do this brand. And I actually got lucky, too, with their misfortune that they were having a really rough time at the time. Their business was struggling.
Home.
Yes, and that was huge for me because I went with a logo, a name, a sort of concept, you know, my little pitch on like, we're going to create a movement and everyone's breaking the status quo. And I said, we have a TV show coming and it's going to be all over the TV show and I'm going to do an episode about it and I'm going to blah, blah, blah. Because I also had gotten lucky in the sense that since I wasn't working for Rob anymore and this show was more entrepreneurial based, MTV started sort of asking in their show notes, what's drama doing, right? Like, let's see what drama's doing. Like,
yeah, because you're another character.
Yeah, like you know, this show's all about Rob doing all these businesses. What the hell is drama doing? Because he's not working for Rob anymore. So let's think of something. And I was like, I got it, right? Yeah. So I went to these guys, with that idea, and they're like, you know what? Let's do it because they also needed something to sort of supplement their stuff. So we jumped into it. I remember, for the sake of the story, the first season came around and I didn't have the trademarks. And so you couldn't put it on TV, on MTV without trademarks. And I was devastated because that meant we couldn't do an episode about it. I couldn't start coming up with any ideas. There was literally nothing. And that's why if you watch the first episode, I'm wearing Diamond and Rogue status and DTA. And secretly I was so mad, right? Like, this should be mine. I'm giving them all this free stuff, whatever. And because I didn't know, like I said, it could have got canceled after that. And there's my shot and now it's done. And so luckily, it worked. It got picked up for another season. By that time, I had all the trademarks and everything handled. I went in, I said, here's what drama's doing, and that gave me the lane to put it all over my office and sort of start that. And that's where Rob is so brilliant. And even everyone on the show is so brilliant because they did such a good job at sort of translating what I was really going through into TV form. And they did that so well with all the Fantasy Factory. So what I'm saying is, like, all my little meetings were boring. All the little designs and sitting in my room scratching Y&R is boring. But creating a little office that's a littler version of Rob's office because it's my mini mogul office and I'm about to be an entrepreneur is brilliant, right? Because that translates to the audience like, oh shit, this guy's starting a brand. And they did that so well. And So anyway, so that's when we filmed the first season. We filmed me jumping out of the building to prove I was reckless. We filmed all that stuff.
I remember that episode.
Yes, and then we had I had two
that
little mice.
That huge freaking air thing.
Yeah, and remember I had those two little mice, right? Because Rob had medium beefy, so I had Cheesy and Swissy, who were two little mice with Y&R shirts on. Yeah. And so then what we did was we took Dee and I, my partner, we took the DVD of the edited first episode with Y&R in it. Because they edit probably on average 2 or 3 months before it airs.
Okay.
So we took it, we drove it down to PacSun in Orange County, and we said, look guys, so here's the salesman thing again, right? The same way you said you have to put together the plan to pitch something, you have to put together this sort of inflated story to sell it. So we took it down there and we said, look, watch this episode. This is about to be the biggest brand. This is the biggest show, blah, blah, blah. We'll give it to you exclusively for 6 months. You just have to buy it for all doors, and you have to have it up in the store the day after this episode airs. Yeah. So once again, thank God they took a risk too. They were like, all right, we'll do it. So we went finally.
And does that mean, like, when they say we'll do it, like for all those that are like trying to start a brand out there, like, what does that even mean, right? Do they like they write you a purchase order? Like, what does that look like? Is there a contract? Were you like, what did that feel like when that happened?
Yep. So here's a big thing. A lot of people ask me, and this is where this situation for me was unique, but there's value in me telling it. A lot of people ask me, well, where'd you get the investment? Well, who invested? Well, who took the risk? Because we were so crafty, and because I had the benefit of a TV show, which is why I tell people who are starting clothing brands, go find an influencer, build up a social media presence, like get the audience first, and then give them product. Don't try to have product with no audience, right? Yeah. So because I had those things, we were able to take that DVD down to PacSun, sell PacSun, that was about to be the next biggest thing in the world, and it's all theirs, and all of my social media traffic and everything I say is gonna say PacSun. Yeah. You guys have it exclusively, but you have to put it in all doors, and you have to have signage, and it has to look like you guys are repping it. So the way that it looks is, they say, okay, cool. And then you're like, yeah, you drive home from Orange County, you're like, fuck yeah, we're fucking rich, and then you get back to the office, and a week or so you send them your line sheets, which at the time we had 3 graphics in 18 different colors, and they send you their purchase order. And what I'm getting at is, we were never in debt because we never had real product. All we had was the 20 shirts I wore on TV, and the wallpaper in my office was our only real expenses. Yeah. So
you had the samples.
Yeah, we had the samples, and I wore the shit out of them. I gave them to everyone. We did photo shoots. We did all this stuff. And so then when they made their purchase order, it was essentially, it's a little bit more obviously difficult than this, but it was essentially like we were instantly profitable because we had an order and we filled it with our first real shipment of product. Right. And it was a pretty decent size order. It was small units.
They did give you all the stores?
They did, and at the time it was like 650 stores or something, and it was small units, but it was, that's a lot of stores. I instantly thought I was filthy rich, and I had screwed the system, and you know what I'm saying? And shortly thereafter.
But now that was like, this is just the start.
Oh my God. And then, you go from that high, that's where I've learned to sort of balance a little bit. Like, you go from that high to like, realizing that, when you walk in a store and there's 2 shirts tucked in the back shelf, and the show's off the air, so the shirts aren't selling, and you're like, oh shit, like it's all over. You know what I mean? Like that huge. I was puffy 6 months ago, and now I'm fucking homeless. You know what I mean? Yeah. But anyway, that was sort of how that initial launch went down.
Yeah, and then. I know a lot of people that are trying to start a brand, trying to start a streetwear brand or just a clothing brand, whatever. Like, they end up not able to fulfill their orders. They don't have they don't realize the business on the front end. They're excited. They're excited to design a shirt and design this line, but then they don't actually have like. What are the logistics and how are we fulfilling orders? How are we building our presence and campaigns? And I mean, you know more of this than I do, but the accounting of it and the budgeting and all that stuff. Like, when did all of that really start to put the pressure really start kicking in and figuring it out?
It was quick, man. It was, like I said, it was that initial high of sort of filming the episode, selling all the product to PacSun, and like we did it. Like it's over. We have the next biggest brand in the world. Like I was drinking my own Kool-Aid, right? Like I sold them on this is the next biggest brand, and then they bought it, and I'm like, this is the next biggest brand, you know?
Yeah.
And but it was pretty instantaneous that it tanked.
Wow.
You know, like there was some initial sales that were decent, but it wasn't some huge smash success. And then, like I said, like the curse was right after the show was off the air for that season, it just absolutely tanked.
Wow.
And so yes, then you run into those problems. You know, I think at the time PacSun for us was net 60 maybe. So you know, you're not getting paid for a little while. You can't go to these other retailers now because you promised them exclusivity. You want to hire staff, but you don't really know if you can even pay them for a whole year. You know, it's just a whole list of problems. I think everyone deals with it in different ways. Like I said, our problems were all really unique because of the weird TV show element in all of it.
Yeah.
And the good thing was I could survive because of the money that I was making from MTV, even though it wasn't much. But yeah, it was just very close multiple times to being the death of the idea, because if you can't pay your vendors, if you can't pay your employees, you're just done, you know? And I think people sort of see this very basic form of succeeding, which is like you get an order, you're rich, you get all the money. I don't know how, it just gets wired to you, I guess, as soon as they say yes, and all of a sudden you just have Rolexes and like, you know what I mean? But it's balancing that. I mean, so many companies have done $10, $15 million a year and collapsed because you can't properly handle budgeting and payments and production and returns. You know, you get that first return where Macy's says, oh, you know, we had a great year, you did $2 million, but $1 million of it we still have, take it back. You know, it's like, holy shit, you know, that's a whole different, you're like, I didn't expect that, I already bought my watch.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's all just, that's the real, that's
So
the
how did you
real,
get through
not the
that?
Instagram entrepreneur, you know what I mean? And that's the part that I think a lot of kids, and you can only learn it by going through it.
Yeah.
Right? But that's why you got to just go try shit, because there's so much shit that's going to smack you in the face that you just don't know until you go try it. You know?
And it doesn't ever end, you know? I mean, it just can, you know, it just...
That's another big thing I learned. I'm going to be honest, up until about 5 years ago, maybe 4, I had this idea still of success that was like, at some point you make it.
Yeah.
Like at some point, like it just gets easier. Like you don't have to wake up every morning with a to-do list and put out fires. And it just, I don't know, at some point you just make it.
Yeah.
And that day never came. And I remember, you know, years in and getting over these humps that I never thought we'd get over, and being quote unquote successful and still doing the little, like I said, sort of putting out firework that I was doing. I was like, shit.
Getting your hands dirty and you're still doing a lot of the grind.
Yeah, I was like, this just isn't gonna end, huh? You know, you're still gonna have to, but now I'm at a place where I realize, because there was obviously-
And it's been how many years now?
8.
Wow.
Yep. So, I'm also at a place.
Congratulations,
Thank
man.
you.
Honestly, that's awesome, dude.
Thank you.
Really.
Yeah, there was a lot of time there where I felt like, man, because my biggest fear was I didn't want it to be a merch brand. I didn't want it to be corny. I wanted to work. I wanted to be the real deal, right? Like I didn't want to be a TV guy. It wasn't. Everyone thought I was like Lil Wayne with Truck Fit, right?
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And it's not
like
what
just
I wanted.
a one-hit wonder, and just like it was gonna end after a freaking year.
And
or
I never
two.
wanted to be an entertainer with licensing deals, right? Like I wanted to work, and I wanted to be intelligent, and I wanted to create brands. And I think it took a long time for people to see that, but I think now, you know, in the last year or so, people are like, oh shit, I mean, this guy's been around for long enough that I guess he means it, right?
Yeah.
But it was always my biggest fear, and I think there was a lot of uphill battles there because of how we were perceived. But I think now we're finally over that, and I'm over that, and the whole thing is
that
just kind of...
is there now.
I think it's just like, you're just like, oh, whatever, the guy's been here forever. You know what I mean? It's like the brand's been here for, obviously the brand's real, obviously he wants to work, whatever, we'll let him work. But yeah, it was a huge...
So what is like a day-to-day for you? Do you have like any kind of habits that like, or that keep you going, or is it more like every day is just a new day? And like, what is a day in the life?
Yeah, so in my brain right now, I'm trying to mature a little and grow up a little and get better at this, but it's a constant battle between absolute chaos, which I really don't love, and then trying to structure and have some sort of normalcy in all of that, right? Yeah. And I think sometimes the structure actually hurts the progress, and I think sometimes the lack of structure. It's this weird balance that I'm trying to...
I agree, I know it
trying to
well.
perfect, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd love to say I wake up every morning at 6 a.m. and the first thing I do is make my bed like Tim Ferriss, and then I go meditate, and then I do 5 cartwheels.
Yeah.
But I'm just not there yet. I'm not mature enough yet. I'm not a morning guy at all.
Yeah.
I wake up at probably 8:30 or 9.
Yeah.
I have been trying to do meditation for 10 minutes early in the morning just to sort of calm things. But really it's just, if I'm being 100% honest, I wake up around then, I go straight to emails, do all that stuff first, then I eat and take any break or social media or do whatever, and then I come straight to the office. And I'm here every day for the most part, unless I'm out of town. And I'm either going through my to-do list or sort of putting out fires around the office. And for the most part, that's it. Other than photo shoots and all the cool, fun shit you see on Instagram with me hanging out with reckless girls and all that stuff, I'm really just here kind of at that computer there.
Yeah. What has become like, as a leader of the brand, like how has it been actually like growing your team? You talked a little bit earlier, like how it was a little bit, you didn't know how to go about even doing that in the beginning. You're kind of like all on your own, figuring shit out, being resourceful, like making it happen. And then once you get to a company that's been around for 8 years, you have this growing brand, you're building more partnerships, more collaborations, more stores, more responsibility. Like how have you been able to build out your team and be that leader for the brand and that founder? It's
hard, and it's something that I underestimated, and at a young age, to be honest, I've never really been cocky, but I will say that I underestimated the work and the intelligence that goes into building a team and being a leader. Right? And I just kind of felt like, let's do this, guys. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tag you in my Instagram post. That's what you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? So I think at first so in the first probably 3 years of Young and Reckless, it was very sort of slow growth. It was just me and a couple people. Then that's when we ramped it up, probably the next 3 years. And I didn't necessarily do it that well. I hired a good amount of people and I tried my best, but I can't say that I was some incredible leader. Because what you run into is you have 5 people on your marketing team, but they don't know what to do. I mean, you kind of just expect people to come in and like, all right, what are you guys doing? You know what I mean? Like without that one direction and that one thing. And that's what I think, there was a big moment for me and for all the audience was like, I just kind of thought, you create a business, it becomes successful, you hire people who have done this before, and they know what to do, right? And like, why do I have to do all the work? I've been doing all the work, you know what I mean? Like I was on TV. It's like, you sort of, you don't realize that like, you will always have to be the spearhead of the thing. It's your baby, it's your creation. It's why when so many founders leave businesses, they tank.
Yeah, that happened with Elite Daily for sure. When we all left, I mean, that all happened.
100%. All day. I mean, it's why it happens. It's why, so what I'm saying is like, if you don't just sort of shut up and do it and lead the group and say, this is what we're doing, and then let them go be great. You know what I mean? Like they will be really good people and employees and whatever if you tell them where the hell they're even trying to go, you know?
So that was that vision.
And then the really interesting thing, which I'm still on the tail end of now, so now I'm trying to be better at how I actually do it and approach it and treat people and more aware of sort of how I'm leading. But
and the communication is like key.
Huge.
Communicate.
And there was a huge issue for us where when a lot of things, in the last couple of years, retail has been getting crushed. And e-commerce is everything. So what that means for us internally is a lot of firing people, a lot of hiring new people. The team, from 2 years ago to now, it's almost a totally different group of people. What that means is in this business, you become really close with your marketing people. You become really close with some of your designers. And it means having to sit down and fire your friend and trying to explain to them. I mean, imagine sitting down, I mean, you probably had to do it, but sitting down across from your friend who you went on trips with, you've done all this stuff, and saying, we got to let you go, not necessarily because you're doing anything wrong or this terrible person, but it's just not where we're going. It's just not where the business is going. It's just not where, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a weird thing. And so that was also a big... I just
went through that recently.
And it's tough, man. There's no easy way to do it unless you're just some sort of soulless monster. But you also have to, you balance. And that's where I learned a lot about balancing, like, okay, we can all be friends and I love coming here every day and I want this to be a fun place, but there is a job to do.
Exactly.
So anyway.
And that's the same way that I look at it with a lot of like my mentees and things. Like I build relationship with like my whole squad, you know, like everybody that I'm working with, the people that hit me up that I'm sitting and mentoring, the people that come into founders, but I'm like, hey, but I'm not really here to be your friend. Like I like you, we're gonna get along, we're gonna do things, but I'm here because I need to actually be someone that's gonna tell you that you're fucking shit up. And you know that you gotta make a change. And I mean it's not easy, but I mean, especially now more than ever, don't you feel, I mean, I've just went through this over the past 2 years. We're probably around the same age, but like I felt, and partly the reason why I've even, you know, built this community around Leaders Create Leaders is because like I feel we actually are growing up. Like we really do have to be role models, right?
It fucking sucks.
You know, and it's like, fuck, like we never really thought about it. But, you know, there's a lot of these like, kind of like, you know, I don't want to say, I don't know if it's called fake entrepreneurs or like wannabe. I used to call them wantrepreneurs, but that are out there that haven't gone through these struggles, like don't know what it's like to truly have to go through firing people, building a business, scaling ups, downs, like, you know, pivoting and like doing something and really believing in it and being a leader for 8 years, not just 6 months or like just because you're, you know, trying to get sponsored posts on Instagram that you're an entrepreneur. And I felt like it's put some responsibility on us to be even more role models and leaders out there. Have you felt that? Have you felt that now at this point?
So I agree 1,000,000% on all those things. I would say that, you know, the upside of social media, for instance, is it's given, you know, everyone's a brand, everyone has an opportunity, everyone has, you know, it's easier now than ever to build a fan base, build an audience, put out your music, whatever. The bad thing is it's easier than ever to front. You know what I mean? It just, you can be anything that, it's sort of like the modeling thing, you know, like the, not Instagram models, but the like, oh, you know how girls beef over, you're a model because you have a Model Mayhem page or whatever, right? You know, like, oh, you're a model because you got one photo shoot. It's just like, you're an entrepreneur because you know, you got an office, right? And you can Instagram it. And I think that it's bad. It's potentially really destructive, and it's potentially gonna lead people down a lot of the wrong paths because you think that you're doing it and you're not. And it's before, you know, think about it. Think about all the work that you had to go through before social media to actually launch any sort of business. And that's where then you get press. Then you get people saying, oh, you have a business. Now you can literally do it tomorrow. You can register for an LLC and you have a business and you put it in your Instagram bio and now you're an entrepreneur and everyone will say, oh man, congrats on the new business. And it's like, it's just not, it's not the proper, you know. And so I think all good. I mean, for those people, do whatever makes you happy, but I just think that it's not gonna create the right leaders and the right entrepreneurs, and the right people aren't going to see what it actually takes to go through it, and they're not actually going to pay their dues, and they're not actually going to figure it out for real. And I think there will be some backlash to that. But I feel a responsibility, and I feel a responsibility only for this reason. Like I said, simply from moving here and seeing that it was possible to start a business and doing it, and I love the work. I love getting my ass kicked. I love that. That's what keeps me going, right?
What would you say to someone out there that is getting their brand going and they want to get some cool collaborations for growth, because that is a great way to be able to grow? How do you go about doing that? I mean, what's your process for that?
First piece of advice is you have to completely like let go of any sense of pride or any sense of like self-worth or you know what I'm saying? Like you because you have to get told no and that you're not cool enough and you're not the right brand, and that happens 20 times before you get the one. And like your ego's so battered that you're like, oh, I hope people like cup of noodles. You know what I mean? Because you're like, oh shit. And that was always one of my biggest, like I said, like one of my biggest issues when I was younger and had just started the brand is a lot of people didn't want to work with us because a lot of people thought we were kind of this flash in the pan, or it wasn't a good look for their brand. And it's kind of hard to take building this brand and working on this thing and having somebody look at you and say, it's not good for us to be affiliated with you, right? It's like, shit. And there's nothing more so that happens than in clothing, because it's all about cool points. And it's all about, these collaborations are literally saying, you know, let's put your name and my name on a t-shirt, right? So it's the most stripped down form of like, am I cool enough or not? And there was that was another thing that got slowly easier and easier and easier. And you only do it from, like I said, letting go of any sense of pride and just trying. If I go to a company like Cup of Noodles and I say, hey man, I have this brand, Young and Reckless, we should collab, they're going to be like, no, I don't think so. But if I go to Cup of Noodles and say, hey man, here's my brand, here's the audience I'm reaching, here's the amount of units I'm selling, and here's why I think our brands work together, you know? It's all about the come up, and that's what Young and Reckless is about. And we want to do a video series highlighting that with these guys from Food Beast who have a lot of eyeballs. And you know, now they're like, yeah, okay, sure. You know what you're doing. You know what I mean? And that's what I learned. I think Young ego drama just said, yo, you know who I am, let's collab, you know? And it's like, no, dude.
And I think plan, when you come with like an actual, like, here's a marketing plan. I really thought this through. How I can bring value to your brand just as much as I bring value to my brand.
Yeah, here's why it makes sense. Here's why it'll work. Here's, you know, and you have to keep it real. You have to think, does it really make sense?
Right.
If you can't pitch yourself on why it makes sense to that brand, it doesn't make sense, you know? And I think accepting that is a hard thing. I think a lot of these young guys and girls have egos, and it's like, you should just mess with me because I'm cool, and it's like, that's never going to work ever. So that's what I would say. Come up with the idea, say why it matters,
and then like, how do you structure something like that? Like, so do you do like, is it just like 50-50 rev share with these kind of collaborations, or is it kind of like, does that get complicated? Like a lot of times, like entrepreneurs, they get scared when it comes down to like, okay, what does that contract look like? You know, is it simple? Like, how did you figure that out? Is everyone different?
Yeah, everyone's different, but my advice there is always be more than fair. A lot of deals, so many deals go bad because people overestimate their worth, and it's ego, and it's like, nah, man, I want 10%. Why? I'm not taking that, you know, whatever. The way that I do 90% of my collaborations, whether it's with an ambassador, that I'm doing a collab with 21 Savage or Cup of Noodles or anyone, is 50-50 profit split, right? Because like, how can you argue that? It's like, we're going to take off the cost of obviously the product, the cost of the marketing. Most of the time we end up doing all the work, which is fine. Like, we do the market, we do the videos, we do the whatever, but we'll take the cost off of that, and any money that we make, we split, you know? And that has almost always worked for me. I mean, I can't think of one person yet or brand that has said, no, we want 60-40. You know, it's just a dick move, you know? But everyone is different. Like, you might do a deal with like a corporate, you know, a more corporate company or whatever that would say, oh, well, we only do, you know, 8% royalty or something like that. But, you know, also for the listener or for the viewers, it's like, you know, an 8% royalty ends up being about the same as a 50-50 profit split, depending on the fee. You know, so it's all just sort of different ways to say the same thing. But 50-50 profit split just sounds a lot better, you know.
Did you learn, and did you have any, like, when it comes to like papering things up, contracts, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they're stoked, they're like going and shaking and moving, but they don't actually then take the time to do the fundamental things of like making sure they have their trademarks, making sure that they have that licensing agreement done, or that contract, that services agreement, whatever that is. Maybe they're with their manufacturer, whatever that is. Like, how was that something that you had to go through yourself? Did you make mistakes going through that?
Yeah, so the way that I did it, and this is the advice I would give, is like, number one, I surrounded myself with smart people. And, you know, a million people have said it, but you always want everyone around you to be smarter than you are. You know, if you ever feel like you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? And then I asked a lot of questions, and I shut up and watched how people did stuff. And you know what I mean? So we had attorneys, and I had my business partner who had done stuff like this before, and I was watching what Rob was doing. I was watching all these people around me. So, and then you go do it, and you do a couple bad deals, and you lose money, and you get your ass handed to you, and you feel stupid. But then you learn it pretty quickly. And I think the biggest thing is you learn pretty quickly, like, people aren't rocket scientists. You know, like most of it comes down to common sense. It's like, you might have to learn one time sort of what an 8% or 9% royalty is, what industry standard is, but like, you learn that one time, and then it's kind of like, use common sense and make it happen. So we still obviously have attorneys and we have smart people around and whatever, but it's like, we know clothing isn't, you know, we're not rewriting, you know, some sort of algorithm here. Like, it's a little, you know, it's like, you know how it works, and you just kind of do that. But
so what's next for Young and Reckless? Like, what's the trajectory look like for going into 2018?
Next is, for Young and Reckless, I would say heavy e-commerce, right? Okay, like, if I could do it today, I'd be 100% e-commerce.
Right.
I like being able to speak directly to my audience. I like being able to, we can do way more product. We're doing denim. We're doing all this different stuff online that we can't do at retail because of the markup, right?
Yeah.
So heavy e-commerce, everything is e-commerce marketing, way more content. That's the main focus. And, you know, like I said, we're doing denim that's 2 for $70. We're doing, you know, it's like, my goal is, well, I'll just tell you because it's an entrepreneur show. My goal is, what happened is H&M, Topshop, Zara, all those guys came to the US. I can't compete with their prices. There's no way that I can. And clothing brands mean less than they ever have right now. Because what speaks for you is your Instagram page, your Snapchat, your phone, your case.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the brand on your t-shirt like it used to.
Yeah.
So my goal is, I'm never going to be able to hit their price, but how can I be a little bit above that, but offer a brand and offer a lifestyle and offer content and offer curation and all these different things, and just a little bit better style than those brands have. And I think there's value there.
Yeah.
And that's the value that I'm going for. So we're working so hard on pricing and on sourcing and on tracking down how we can even make these things and be competitive. So that's what it looks like, pricing.
And are you still hands-on with design and things like that, or you kind of hand that off to the designers at this point and just approve? Like, what is your process with the creative side?
My process with creative, mostly marketing and mostly content stuff is where I mostly am involved. With design, I essentially sort of look at the plan and then approve the line in the end, right? Okay. So now, in the early days, it was literally like, I've never been a designer or a graphic designer, but literally sitting at the computer like, no, let's make this orange, But we finally have hired real designers and talented human beings. And so now, luckily, I get to kind of do the intro and the outro part, and that's it. So that's why our clothes are so much better, because I'm less hands-on. But
and that goes to show how you continue to surround yourself with people that that know your strengths, and surround yourself with the people that have mastered that craft.
The difference for us, the difference between hiring a really talented designer who could design a full collection, which I thought was well, we made it now, here's our full collection, and hiring a really talented designer that can design a full collection at the right price, because it's a different design style. It's if you put a zipper here, it looks expensive, but maybe it's not a real pocket, so you save 30 cents, and it's like having a designer who really understands that design from a production perspective and a sourcing is insane. And that's all stuff that I learned. It's like we had the designer who could design, and then the designer who could design for a price, and then the designer who could design for a price and also lead a team and bring the best out of them. It's it's all a process. But
and what is your hiring process like? I mean, are you the typical person out there that believes you need to have a resume? Is it based on what is your hiring?
So it depends on the position. There's certain positions where you absolutely need a resume 100%. Yeah. Some of the design stuff and whatever. A lot of the positions now are marketing, creative, so even social media type stuff, and it's a lot looser there. I think on that stuff it's more about personality and how you fit into the group, because I've learned so much that if you come in here, it doesn't matter if you're a wizard at making videos. If you're a weird, goofy dude that wears, button-ups and hard shoes and gels your hair all day, you're not going to fit in here. You're not going to bring anything out of this place, right? It doesn't matter how talented you are. So at the same time, there could be a kid who nearly has no talent. It's just crafty and creative and weird and quirky, and that now all of a sudden you have a gem out of that. So,
do you look at all their social media?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I feel like it's part of the process now, right? To see their 100%. Lifestyle.
100% I do, yeah. Because here it's so based around lifestyle. Unlike, even more so than a lot of businesses. It's you have to fit in here. Yeah. These guys are out here shooting Nerf guns at each other and making funny memes and Photoshop stuff of people's faces. If you're a weird uptight, you're not gonna make it here.
I hear you. That's funny. I think that's why personal branding today is so important too. Yeah. How is your personal brand as a founder been really positive for you?
Yeah, that's the other thing that I'm working on. That was sort of that's what's going on with Young and Reckless, and then what I'm paying a lot of attention to is my own personal branding stuff. I think, the quick version of it is I came here, like I said, I did the TV stuff, I started the brand, and then I kind of hit this moment of well, what are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. I'm not a clothing designer, I'm not an athlete, I'm not what are you? What are you spending your time showing and highlighting and building on? And it's that I am a guy from Ohio who was uneducated, who moved to LA and started a business, right? And that's a lot of people's dreams. And like we were saying, that's cooler now than ever to be that young entrepreneur without a college education. And so for me, it's about building that however I can. And that's why I started the podcast. And it's just about telling stories of other young entrepreneurs and highlighting young entrepreneurs and anything in that field that really plays off of who I am and what my passions are and can help that's what I'm working on.
It gives me chills, brother, because that's exactly the path I'm on, man. Yeah. Thank you, dude.
Of course,
I love it.
Thank you for doing this.
For the audience, what would be that last piece of advice that you would give to your younger self and the young leader
Here's what I would say. I would say the possibilities are endless. Can I look right at the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. The possibilities are endless. But I hate when people say, just dream big. You can do anything. Anything is possible. That's a lie. But what I will say is you can do a lot more things than you think that you're capable of doing. But the only way to do them is to figure out what that is, or at least get a direction started, and then educate yourself on what it's actually going to take to start doing that and to put that plan into motion, and then just do it. Just start doing it. Like, this first step is going to seem so stupid and so little, and so it won't make any sense to the full plan. But you have to just start and take that first step, because the next step will come, and the next step will come, and the next step will come, and one day you'll be sitting here talking about your business that you created and how happy you made your family, and you'll be like, holy shit, that worked.